Hey guys, how you doing? Before I get to the actual review, I want to give a bit of a backstory about how I ended up with the 510s. I started riding in 2015, and when I started riding, I had no idea about mountain biking, like nothing. I didn't know that there were different sort of categories within mountain biking, in enduro, downhill, cross country, trail. I had no idea. I just thought mountain biking was mountain biking. You had a mountain bike, and that was it. Some would argue that's still the case. So when I got my first mountain bike in 2015, I think it was a 300 or 400 euro sports department store bike. I went out and bought the cheapest pair of Shimano clipless pedals because that's what you do, right? Mountain biking is clipless. And I went from there and joined a local cross-country club. 2 or 3 months later, I realized that I was really bored doing basically fire track roads with maybe 50 meters, 100 meters of crappy trail. So I went online and started looking for trails around Madrid, and I stumbled across Track MTB. You'll know Jorge and Alvaro to a lesser extent, but Jorge is in virtually every single one of my videos. They run a guiding company, and I went out with them. I was on my first full suspension bike. I was on my first dropper, my first sort of enduro technical trail, and I came to realize I just didn't have the skills to be able to wear clipless pedals. And I thought, okay, I got to take a step back. I know there's a little bit more to this now. I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to buy some flat shoes. There are a lot of choices, but basically the majority of people, or a great number of people, ride 510. So what did I do? I went online and I chose the 510 Freeriders. Now you can see that these are in a bit of a state, and I'll tell you why. This is a long-term review. I bought these at the end of 2015, October 2015, from Chain Reaction. I think they cost me like 89 euros. In fact, I know they cost me 89 euros because I checked it yesterday. Why did I choose the 510s? Because they had a name that I knew I could at least count on to get going. The price wasn't too bad for what they are, and I just said, what the hell, let's go with this. So how do you dictate what is a long-term review? Well, some people say, you need a month to try out a product, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months. These shoes have approximately 12,000 kilometers on them. This is this is a proper test. 12,000 kilometers, and they're still going. Just. Okay, so let's look at what's good about these shoes and what's bad about these shoes. The bad. Now, I bought these for 89 euros. I think that's pretty much a solid buy. Biking shoes are expensive, yes, regardless whether you buy clipless, flats. If you go anything over a sort of entry-level shoe, then the price does sort of skip up to sort of 100 and over 100. So these were 90 euros. I think the price was pretty good on this, but they are generally more expensive than your average trainer, which a lot of people tend to use when they're starting off on flat pedals. So if you're going from a sports trainer, that could be a potential downside. But again, look how long they've lasted. Another downside to these shoes, and this isn't only my own experience, I've spoken to, I have a friend who's also experienced this. Once you've been wearing them for a few hours, even though they are very wide on the outside, if you've been wearing them for a good long ride, they actually start to pinch on the side of your small toe, and it can actually become quite uncomfortable until you actually get off and walk around. You do have to be wearing them for quite some time, so if you're out on some sort of epic ride, then at least for me and for the friend I spoke to, it happened. Maybe it won't happen for you, maybe we've just got peculiar feet, but that was another downside for me. Just to add one more, just so that it's not all positive, and this is a negative and a positive at the same time. The soles on the 510s, on the 510 Freeriders in this particular case, are so sticky that once you've got your foot into position, you're going to have to lift your foot off the entire pedal to move it around. Now that's obviously a good thing. You're on flat pedals, you want your feet to stay secure, but at the same time, if you need to move your feet, then that can be an issue. So that's a good and bad. Okay, so let's move on to the good points. Over 10,000 kilometers, nearly 12,000 I believe. They've been everywhere with me, all over Spain, every kind of terrain. Like I said, I bought these October 2015. This is September 2019. That's nearly 4 years wear. What I will say now is obviously 4 years. I mean, you can't ask for more. You couldn't expect more. The soles have actually started to go through now. in several places on both shoes, and the grip is actually it's pretty much gone now. My foot is sliding off the pedal and coming off a lot now. It's time to fork out for a new pair. But when the soles are fully intact, the grip on here is just unbelievable. Like I said, you can take that as a good or a bad. I personally take that as a good. I don't want my feet moving around when you're on technical descents, and boy, do they stick to those pedals. So another good point is the build quality. Once again, 12,000 kilometers on them, 4 years riding, and there is not one stitch that has come apart. The sole and the shoe is still completely together. Yeah, I'm not hiding this one here. It's just more difficult to hold too. All the stitches are intact. Still the original laces. The tongue is still intact. The build quality is phenomenal. You know, for those 90 euros I paid in chain reaction, I cannot complain. That is one solid shoe. And on a similar vein, these are actually very comfortable to walk around in when you're not on the bike. You could almost, I mean, if they weren't quite so heavy, you could almost use them as an everyday shoe. They are incredibly comfortable to walk around in, and that's a huge plus when you're on flat shoes. I actually have a pair of boots as well, 510 boots, and they're a lot more protective around obviously the ankle and the toe. One thing I will say for the Freeriders is they do have quite a lot of flex on them, which can be a good thing, which can be a bad thing. But what I will say, there is very, very little protection on the end. I've caught my feet between a rock and a hard place literally several times, and there is no protection. That, I mean, you get into a bad situation, you're going to break your toes. That's something definitely to take into consideration with this. With regards to the aesthetics, well, 510s are some of the better looking shoes. They're perhaps not the sexiest things on the planet. They are pretty big, they are pretty wide, they are pretty heavy and pretty chunky. You know, it's personal taste whether you like the look of these or not. I personally don't think they're too bad, but then again, I'm not looking at my feet when I'm riding down the side of a mountain, so that's up to you. Now I know that 510 is one of the most popular brands for flat pedals. There are several others out there as well. I haven't tried any of the others, so I don't have a point of comparison. I just went straight to 510s. My other flats, the boots are 510 as well. These are pretty much ready for the bin now, so I'm going to be in the market for buying some new ones now. The easy choice would be to go to 510 again because they've been great, but I always like to experiment. I always like to try new things. So I would ask you, if you're a flat rider, if you're not riding 510s and you've ridden any other brands, what can I be looking at? You know, I don't want to break the bank. I want something that's going to last. I want something that's going to have at least the same amount of grip as 510s. I know it's a lot to ask. And if they could be a bit lighter, maybe even a bit more waterproof. If you do live in sort of wetter climates like the UK, these could be a nightmare because they are very thick. They could take a long time to dry. In Spain, there's not an issue. You ride one day, if it does rain, it gets wet. By the next day, it's perfectly dry. But yeah, so if you've got any suggestions about what I can go to next, I'd definitely be keen to hear those in the comments. Other than that, the 510 Freeriders, I mean, they don't make them exactly the same as this now. Long-term review. But I couldn't recommend them highly enough. I mean, these have been absolutely solid pair of flat riding shoes. If you are in the market, or even if you're looking to buy your first pair of flats, definitely go and check online. There are always deals, especially on these older models. A great pair of shoes. Can't recommend them enough. If you've enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, like, and I hope you hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time. Hasta la próxima.